I'm going to teach you from scratch how to create a professional movie making config for CSGO movie making. Now here's a little extra fun fact. I'm going to use the Echoes of 2019 config as a reference point for what I'm about to teach you. So if you wanted a config like Echoes of 2019, this video is for you. Configs are basically text files. It's a pretty easy thing to make. It doesn't require any special programmer knowledge, although that does help in this situation. But more importantly, it doesn't require any special programs to download to create a movie making config. You can just do this right on your computer with a notepad file. Okay, so let's make one. Right click, text document, and we'll call this movie making, okay, .txt. All right, let's open it. Cool. Alrighty. Okay, the important thing to remember is that the way that I'm going to teach you is not the right or wrong way, it's just the way that I do it. So you can actually arrange these commands however you want. And some of the commands you can even customize to fit to your liking. So for instance, the crosshair style or the FOV that I'm going to show you. You can set whatever you want. There is no right or wrong look. It's all about what you want. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to actually label each section. It allows me to sort of find the command that I want pretty quickly, okay? So in programming, there's a thing called commenting, okay? And you can actually write comments into your code. And in order to write a comment into your code without the computer reading that as a line of code, you actually want to do /, okay? So what we're going to do is we'll call this general. This will just be like our general commands, okay? Now, first thing you want to do is you want to put svcheats1 in. By default, CSGO doesn't actually let you use a lot of these commands. You actually have to turn cheats on, which is why Half-Life Advanced Effects launches CSGO in insecure mode, so you can use cheats, okay? And now they're not cheats in the hacking sense, they're just cheats in the sense that CSGO locks them out from the user using them, okay? Now that we have CSGeats1 on, we can then type in merv cvar unhide all. Okay, so there's a lot of hidden locked commands that you actually can't use unless you unhide them. Okay, so what this command does is it does that. So those are our general run-of-the-mill commands that we need in order to proceed. Okay, all right, so let's do a double space here, paragraph down, and what we're going to do is we're now going to set video commands. Okay, so let's do that // and then type in video. Okay. So what we want to do is we now want to start setting commands that allow us to manipulate the video and the overall visual look of Counter-Strike, okay? Okay, this next command is called host sync FPS and then 1, okay? What it does is it tries to bring your host frame rate, which is a command that I'll tell you later. It tries to bring your host frame rate closer to the rendered frame rate that the computer is rendering the graphics at, okay? I don't think it's an overly important command, but I have it in there just in case, okay? Okay, this next command, host thread mode. So this next command, it actually just basically tells the computer, use multi-threading or hyper-threading if you're on Intel, or don't use it. You can also force it too. Or you could turn it off. If I'm not mistaken, back when we made this, there was a glitch with this command that actually didn't let you move or glitched out CS. So we turned it off. I haven't had any issues using this command and turning it off. That being said, if you have any issues with host thread mode being 0, then try 1 or try 2. So 1 is on, which tells the computer to use multi-threading, and 2 is actually force, which means even if you can't do hyper-threading or multi-threading, we're still going to try it. We're going to do it anyway. Play around with it. My computer doesn't really need it, so I don't have it on. All right, next one, mat Q mode. Okay, so this ties into the last one, the host thread mode. It all deals with hyper-threading or multi-threading. Again, I have this off. I really don't need it on my computer, nor does my computer function any different if I turn it off or on. So I have it off. Like I said, if you want to, feel free to play around with it. 1 is default, 0 is synchronous single thread mode, 1 is queued single thread, and 2 is queued multi-thread. A lot of jargon being thrown around there. Like I said, I have it on 0, and my computer works just fine with Counter-Strike. Why don't you give those options a try, but I have it at 0. Next command, mat post process enable 0. Basically, what this command does is it controls the saturation and the bloom of the map. Ever notice at the beginning of the round that it's sort of like gray and very glowy, and then that sort of dissolves, and then you get your normal colors. That's map post-process, okay? So we want to turn that off, so the colors and the glow stabilize and go back to their normal look, all right? So very important command, actually. For me, this next command, I feel like is very much a user preference. It's the built-in motion blur of the game, okay? CSGO actually comes with motion blur. I use motion blur via frame blending or resampling in Vegas, okay? I know some people can use CC Force motion blur in After Effects or RSMB. This is not necessary, and I suggest you turn it off. Next step, also important, we're going to make an interpolation category, okay? So we're going to comment it out with those double slashes and then type interpolation. These next commands, these are all important because what these will do will help fix the jitter or the judder of the character's movements in the game, and it'll help make your game just look real smooth. What we're going to do is we're going to put in CL interpolate 1. It basically guesses where the models and entities are on the client side a little better. So basically when you're watching a demo, on your side of things, it guesses where the models are in relation to what the server is actually looking at, okay? A lot of math behind it and a lot of programming that goes into this, but very important command to have on. Okay, next few commands, also the same thing as CL interpolate. They just help with the client side of things, best guessing where all the entities are in relation to what the server is actually sending to you, okay? So we found that these following commands or these following values actually work the best for us. Some of these are default, some of these are not. Some of these are just slightly altered, but in our opinion and from what we've seen, these work the best. Next command is CL update rate. All right, so basically this is telling the server how many packets per second should you be sending to the client side to update what's going on the server side, okay? It's basically just telling them, how often do you want me to refresh with the client? We have it at 200. I think you can't go above the tick rate of the demo, and if you're dealing with pro demos, that's 128. We have it at 200. That seems to work perfectly for us. It probably caps at 128. This seems to work for us very well. So that's what I have it set at, and I suggest you do the same. Okay, these next commands, these are going to fix player animation. If you are watching a demo and the players are lagging and jittering back and forth, it's because you have to enact these two commands, okay? And that is CL clock correction 0. And then this next one is actually a merv command. Merv fix playerAnimState 1. Okay? Very important commands to have in your CFG. Okay, moving on. Crosshair. All right. This next part, this is all user preference. Seriously, it doesn't really matter what you put in here. I'm going to leave it up to you, but I'm still going to show you what we use in all the echoes, movies, and all of the memoirs of movies, okay? Okay, so first command, CL crosshair style, okay? So this ranges from 0 to 5. So 0 is default, obviously. 1 is a static variant of default. 2 is like static, but it has these moving dots or like moving hashes on either side of the crosshair. 3 is the classic crosshair that you're used to seeing probably back in the old days of CS. And then actually 4, what we use, is a classic static, okay? So basically this is just the most simple crosshair you can get. It doesn't move when you run, it doesn't move when you shoot, and it looks pretty clean. And that's the one that we use. I highly suggest it just because a dynamic crosshair, a moving crosshair, is kind of distracting when you're watching a frag movie. So I would suggest using 4, okay? So next one is CL crosshair draw outline. So this one's pretty self-explanatory. CL crosshair draw outline is you basically add a stroke to the crosshair, an outline. I put it at 0 because I don't like a stroke around my crosshair. You can put one if you like. It's all up to you, but I put it at 0. Okay, next one, CL crosshair dot. Again, do you want a dot in the center of your crosshair? If you don't, put it at 0. If you do, put it at 1. All right, CL crosshair size. 0 is invisible, no crosshair. Or you can put it at what we put it at, which is 4.5. I just like that size. It just looks right. It's not too big, not too small. It's Goldilocks. All right, so next one, CL crosshair gap. You've got your 4 lines that create the crosshair. The gap is just how far apart those 4 lines grow from each other. We keep it at -1 because we just like that size. It looks right to us, and it just has a nice aesthetic to it. All right, next one, CL crosshair thickness. We keep it at 1. We don't want them to be too big, too thick, so keep it at 1. All right, CL crosshair color. Yeah, CL crosshair color. 1, green, default. The only color you should be having your crosshair at. No, I'm joking. You can put your crosshair at whatever color you want. 0 is red, 2 is yellow, 3 is blue, and 4 is light blue, I think cyan. 1, green, default. That's the only color you should be using. Just kidding again. Not really. Use green. No, use whatever you want. These next 2 commands, CL crosshair use alpha and CL crosshair alpha. So basically these are just the transparency of the crosshair, okay? Both 1 and 200 are default. If you want to make it less transparent, more opaque, go to 250 for crosshair alpha. If you want to make this less visible, go to 0 for use alpha. But we're going to keep it at 1 and 200. Those are defaults, and I think they should stay that way because they look great. All right, cool. That's about it for crosshairs. We could do more, honestly. You could play with the RG and B values. So that would be CL crosshair color underscore R or G or B. And they're all on a scale from 0 to 255, like normal, okay? So you just pick basically you just pick a value. So it could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 255. And then you just do that for all of them. So instead of doing one sweeping command, CL crosshair color 1, you can actually customize the color of your crosshair with those 3 individual commands. We're going to skip those because I'm just going to teach you how to use green because that's how it should be. White crosshair users out there. Ugh, you know who you are. Let's move on. Okay. We're going to call this the in-game clutter section, okay? So basically, this is going to clean up all of the stuff you see on screen, like Nemesis and the MVP, all that stuff. Freeze time, I think we're going to cover in this. Okay, first one, what I just said. Disable freeze cam. Okay, we're going to set that to 1. Basically, when you're playing in a community server and you kill somebody and it shows that person and it freezes the camera on that person that killed you, that disables. Great, we love it. Moving on. SV, no, MVP, 1. The MVP of the round. I actually haven't seen it in forever. I haven't played a community server in forever. This will disable that. We don't want that. SV, no. No nemesis. Whoo, man. Non-emesis. No nemesis. Okay, 1. All right. Somebody kills you a bunch of times in a server, in a community server. It starts to show their name as your nemesis on screen. This disables that. Great, we love it. SV, show impacts. SV show impacts basically shows where a bullet hits as a colored square. Okay? It's usually off by default. We're going to put it to 0 just in case something weird happens in one of your CFGs and that gets enabled. We want to just make sure we disable it. Okay, cool. All right, this is a long one. MP, display, kill, assists. Okay, Basically, what this does is it cleans up your kill feed, okay? So personally, we don't like when the kill feed shows who also helped in killing a player. We don't really care in a frag movie if somebody gets credit for killing somebody. We just want to know who landed the final blow. So MP display kill assist we set to 0. All right, next one. Glow, outline, effect, enable. Put that to 0. Okay. I'm sure you could probably guess the glow that appears around a player when they're on screen, especially when you're watching a demo. That gets disabled. All right, cool. The next 3 all start with spec camera man underscore. Okay. So we're just going to copy, paste that 3 times. Okay. This first one, disable with user control. All right, spec cameraman disable with user control 1. This is actually a hidden command that mervcvar unhide all allowed us to activate. So set that to 1. Basically allows us to disable the cameraman, which is great. We love that. All right, next one. Spec cameraman UI. We want to set that to 0. We do not want to use or see the cameraman's user interface. All right, spec cameraman X-ray. Also set that to 0. We do not want to see the cameraman's X-ray. All right, spec show X-ray. Also set that to 0. All right, this next one are draw tracers first person. This one's up to you. We set it to 0. Okay, reason why. It's a little distracting when you're shooting and every 3rd bullet, I believe, on the AK has a tracer. It just clutters up the screen, right? It clutters up the footage. It just, I don't know, it makes it kind of messy. That being said, sometimes you want tracers on a first-person point of view. Sometimes you want to see those, maybe for an effect or transition that you want to do. The less distracted you are as a viewer during our frag movies, the better, in our opinion. So we put it at 0. It's up to you, though. Okay, cool. The next 2 commands actually start the same way. R, disable, distance, fade, on, big, props. Okay, you can actually copy and paste. Okay, R, disable, distance, fade on big props. We want that to be 1. We want to disable the big props in the map fading out the further we get away from the map. Just looks weird if you want to do a very long tracking cam far away up close. And it also looks cleaner and it makes the map look filled out and better. And then thresh for the second one, put to 0. Okay, thresh is threshold. Okay, we want a 0 threshold. Okay, and last but not least, I did this in my other tutorial on Christmas. SV holiday mode, 0. We do not want to see chickens dressed as ghosts or chickens with hats on their head. I think that was back in 2014. We don't want it. Looks weird in a frag movie. All right, cool. Next section, we're going to call it sound. This is going to be all the sound related stuff. This is, once again, probably going to be a lot of user preference. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm going to show you all the sound commands that we put in, and then it's up to you to choose what you want to do with it. So first things first, merv snd filter. Okay, merv snd filter is a very important command. It helps us block certain sounds in Counter-Strike. Very useful. Okay, first one, block. All right, everything starts with a quotation. First, we're going to do plus player. Okay, now stick with me because you're going to see an increased amount of slashes, and that's because there's a glitch in Counter-Strike where it doesn't read a slash sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't read 2 slashes. So you have to put an extra amount until it works. For me, this works 2 slashes after player, and then we're going to do VO, and then 3 slashes, and then asterisk. Okay, so asterisk is basically a wild card. It blocks everything in this folder. Basically what this is going to do, this should, if I recall correctly, block if somebody talks in game in a demo, this will block that. Okay. All right. Next thing, again, merv snd filter block. All right. Again, quotations. We're going to do plus radio. And then we're going to block it. Okay, so everything in the radio folder, we're gonna block. All right. This one seems to work with 1 slash. You don't need multiple slashes for some reason. If it doesn't work, try add an additional slash, but it should work with 1 slash. Okay, again, so we don't want to hear radio commands. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to hear radio commands. Just don't include this in your config. We don't like to hear radio commands because it clutters up the sound, it makes it messy, and we want a clean frag movie without radio commands because they sound weird. Okay, next one. Merv, SND, filter, block. All right. This, I'm sorry to do, but I really apologize. I know how much people like the chickens in the game. Unfortunately, they are very annoying to listen to when you're trying to watch a frag movie, and make a frag movie for that matters. So, we're going to block their clucking. We do not like clucks. Okay? So, we're going to go ahead and disable that. All right, this next one, SND, use HRTF. So not sure if HRTF is still in Counter-Strike. I don't think it is. It was causing a lot of lagging problems way back in the day, about 5 or 6 years ago. So we would set it to 0 so we wouldn't have FPS problems. It basically relates to how the ear perceives sound and basically reproduces or mimics 3D sound in your headphones. Put it off if you can, and if it's still in Counter-Strike. We still have it in our config, but definitely something you want to have if they still have it in the game, because it is terrible and didn't work back in the day. Okay, next one, volume. It's really easy. I mean, 1 is default. 0.2 is obviously a fifth of 1. Basically, what we do is we set the volume when we record. Because the volume is so messed up in Counter-Strike, we actually decrease the volume to, I think, 0.75 when we record and when we play demos. But you could honestly make this whatever you want, 20.23 or 10 if you want to blow your ears out. You know, just play with this, set it to whatever you want, or if you like the default, then you don't even have to put this in. We'll just leave it out for now, though. Okay, on to the next one. We're going to call this the weapon section, okay? And this is the most hotly contested section of all time. People argue about this section till they're blue in the face. It is probably the section that causes global wars. It is the way we set our FOV, our weapon FOV. And let me tell you, I've gotten myself into some debates about this. Where should you put the weapon on the screen? Should it be here? Should it be back here and down? Should it be way out here so you can see the arms? This is all user preference. I'm still going to show you all the commands for it. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. This is what we use for Echoes of 2019 now. So, CL custom material override. All right, so CL custom material override. We have it set to 1. If you have it set to 0, that means all of your skins will be turned off, okay? What's even more interesting is your gloves will be turned off too. And then you get this like weird silvery reflective material in your glove, which looks really weird. So yeah, we put that in. Default is 1, but we put that in just in case some weird config or command got executed earlier that turned it off. Our config is to make sure that it gets turned on and everything is hunky-dory. All right, moving on. All right, CL right hand 1. If you play with CL right hand on 0, I will take your firstborn. No, I wouldn't do that. Don't make it a frag movie with left-handed models. It's really off-putting and weird, and left-handers are just weird and off-putting in general. So everybody in the world should be right-handed, and so should your frag movies. Moving on. CL Bob lower AMT, which stands for amount. All right, CL Bob lower amount. We have this set to 8. Default is like 20, I think. 20 just looks excessive. We talked this over years ago, probably back in 2016. And we just didn't like the way 20 looked. So we lowered it down to 8, and it does pretty well for us. It's not default, I know. And maybe you want more Bob. Maybe you want the gun to move and sway more than 8. Go ahead, change the number. This is what we have, though. This is what we use for Echoes of 2019. All right, CL Bob amount lat stands for lateral. All right, we have this at 0.4, which is actually default. 0.4 looks fine. You can increase it. I think it goes up to like 2 or 3 you can increase it by, but the more you increase it, the more the weapon's going to go this way, okay? So I would keep it at 0.4. Looks great. All right, and for the next one, CL Bob amount Bert. 0.25 default. Again, we were putting the default values in just in case they got changed previously. All right, the next one. This is where all of our troubles in life start. The hotly contested view model FOV value. Okay, default is 60. All right, in POV view. All right, we have it at 64, and the reason for that is because we want to see more of the screen. I know, four whole values off of the default. It just gives us, obviously, a wider range of view, albeit slightly, but it allows us to take in more of the scene and more of what's happening, more of the action. Okay, we have it 64. You can keep it at default. You can change it to 120. You can change it to 90. You can do whatever you want. Just be warned. The more you mess with this, the more you get off of default, the more it's going to look weird for the viewer. Okay. Okay, some more hotly contested values. View model offset X, view model offset Y, and view model offset Z. Okay, defaults are 1, 1, and -1. I'm sure you probably know. We don't use those. Okay? And here's our reasoning behind it, okay? So let me first show you what we use. We use 2.5, we use 0, and we use -2, okay? In our opinion, the default view model is a bit too much close to center, okay? So default view model, let's say right here, center. The default view model is just a little under center and a little to the right, okay? All right, so what this does is it brings it back and down and to the right a little bit, okay? That just brings the gun outside of the scene and allows you to take in the scene more than actually the gun, okay? And in all honesty, no one really pays attention to the gun when you're watching the scene play out. You're paying attention to the people dying and the action going on. So we just want to take away what isn't important to the scene out of the scene itself, okay? That's our reasoning. Again, you guys can play with these values and pick whatever you want, just as long as you don't get crazy with it. And I don't think anyone will notice or care too much. And if they do care too much, then they've got a very strong, passionate stance on their preferences. So we're getting close here. All right. HUD. We want to clean up the HUD. Very important stuff, clean up the HUD. Let's do it. All right. All right, first thing, HUD scaling. Okay. So this value, we keep it 0.75, okay? Its normal value is 0. That's default, okay? So 0.5 is the smallest you can make the HUD, and 0.95 is the largest you can make the HUD, okay? We keep it at 0.75. We keep it at 0.75 because of the kill feed, okay? We want to blow up the kill feed just a little bit, but don't make it too large and make it visible, okay? Looks pretty good. You can check out our movies and see if you like it. If you do, you can use that number. If you don't, play around with it. Okay, cool. Next one. Safe zone X and safe zone Y. Okay, these two things are going to be 0.98. One is default. Okay, 0.98 is not default. And the reason why we do that is because we like the kill feed to be a little more into this scene. Okay, it's a little too close to the top. We just like to bring it in, down, and to the left a little bit from the top right. Just looks a little better to us. Again, you don't have to put this in, or you can make it even larger. You can make it 0.5, although I think that might be in the middle of your screen if you do that. So those are our values. Again, it's not a value that you have to use, but I'm here to show you everything that we do, okay? All right, next one, HUD, say text time. Okay, we have this at 0. All right, this effectively just removes the text that gets typed in chat. Okay, so you don't see that on the screen. HUD, show target ID, 0. Okay, this basically disables the ability to hover over an enemy and it's showing their name in red. Okay, so it's just cleaning up the screen and the recording. All right, HUD take S shots 0. So this basically just disables taking a screenshot at the end of the match. The default is 0, but we're gonna put it in there anyway, just in case it got enabled by default. Okay, all right, HUD. Draw history time. I'm gonna set that to 0. HUD draw history time. Basically, if I'm not mistaken, when you're picking a gun, you get that little icon that shows up on the bottom corner of your screen. This disables that, so you don't see when a gun is picked and the little icon of that gun shows up on screen. So just again, another way to clean up our screen. All right, next one. Everyone's favorite, net graph. Set that to 0. We don't want to know what the FPS is. It is not 2003. We do not want net graph on in our frag movie. All right, CL show FPS. Again, we don't care. CL show POS, which is position. We don't want to know where our position is in the map. And hide radar 1. We don't want to see the radar in the top corner of our screen. We also want to make sure we spell it right. Okay, one more command in the HUD section, and then we're done for this part, okay? And this command is actually going to give you a sneak peek on how binds work. And we're going to talk about binds in part 2. And yes, there will be a part 2, okay? All right, so this is actually important to remove all of the HUD elements that are on screen, okay? That we didn't take care of in this section already. Okay, command goes like this. There's a command called bind toggling. And what that does is every time you hit the button, it turns off and on the command that you put in. Okay. All right. I'll show you. All right. So what we want to do is we want to assign a key. Okay. And for this, we'll make it N. I think we use N as our key. Okay. And then space. And then what we're going to do is we're going to type in CL draw only death notices. Okay. So what CL draw only death notices does is it removes the health, the armor, and it removes all the messages that CSGO might send you, through your user interface. Okay, this is the final command that cleans up the screen. So your CS is record ready. Okay, now what's cool about binding this command to a bind toggle key is that sometimes you want to see the round, right? Sometimes you want to see the timer because maybe you want to know like what exact time your frag starts in the round, or maybe you want to get to a specific round, right? And you don't know the tick, but you know the round. Well, having CL draw only death notices on, that would make it very hard because then you can't see the round, right? So having this as a bind toggle command allows you to turn on and off for easy access, okay? All right, cool. I think that's it for this part. Okay, great. This is a really good stopping point. This will actually set up your Counter-Strike to be record ready no matter what method you use, no matter whether it's OBS or shadow play or even Half-Life Events effects, okay? So what's gonna happen next is I'm gonna make a second part to this tutorial, okay? And that part is going to cover more in-depth commands like binds and aliases. And what an alias is basically like a symbolic word that represents a string of commands. So we can assign multiple commands to execute only by typing in one word. And I'll show you how that works at a later time. I can also show you how to set up your streams if you use Half-Life Events effects to record. So we'll do that in the next tutorial. In the meantime, this is actually ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to close it after first saving it, okay? And now, you may be wondering, where does the CFG go? Where does the Counter-Strike CFG go? Well, it can go in two different places, okay? It can go in your Counter-Strike folder, so it's probably in our program files. Let's scroll down, find Steam. We're gonna go over to Steam Apps, and then Common, and then our Counter-Strike, and then CSGO, okay? Now, there's a folder in your CSGO folder called CFG. Let's click on that, okay? And as you can see, there's my 2016 config. All right, now, what we're gonna do is we're first going to rename this moviemaking.cfg instead of txt, okay? It's gonna come up with this prompt. You want to say yes, okay? It's going to change the logo if you noticed, and we're going to drop it right in CFG. And now the important thing to do is to right click, go to properties, and click read only. So now this config cannot be changed at all, okay? It can only be read, all right? If you ever want to edit it, just hit properties, unclick read only, and then go in and edit it. But always change it back to read only, okay? All right, say you don't want to put it in your Counter-Strike folder, right? Say you want to put it in a different folder. Well, we can. we can actually just put it wherever we want. For now, let's actually just throw it in our D drive, okay? All right, great, it's in our D drive. Well, if we go into Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike's not gonna read it properly because it's not in our CFG folder in Counter-Strike folder, okay? What we have to do is now tell Half-Life Advanced Effects and thus Counter-Strike to search this folder for the movie making config that we're going to execute. And that's pretty easy. When we launch Counter-Strike through Half-Life Advanced Effects, you actually want to click this right here to enable the movie making config parent folder, go to browse, and then just browse where you put your config at. Okay, and we put it in the D drive. So we go to there, click OK. And now when we go to execute the config in Counter-Strike, it'll search for it in there. Okay, let's launch it and I'll show you. All right, cool, we're in Counter-Strike now after we launched, after setting our movie making config parent folder, okay? Well, we actually have to go back now. We go back to the drive that we set our movie making config parent folder at, which is our D drive. And as you see, a new folder appeared called CFG, okay? Now, all we do is we want to drop moviemaking.cfg into that folder, okay? Great. Now, let's go back to Counter-Strike and let's type exec movie making. And as you can see, movie making showed up and it just executed our config that we made together, okay? And look, I'm sure you saw the change, but the HUD changed, our crosshair changed, and it looks like everything is working pretty properly, okay? So, very easy to set up your movie making config, throw it into a folder, and have it work properly, okay? All right, guys, can't wait to release part 2 for you all. I really hope part 1 helped. If it did, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and I can't wait to see you in the next tutorial.